My name is Kimberly Allen, I'm 33, and at my own engagement party, my sister leaned in while the room applauded a toast aimed at her, not me, and whispered, "He never loved you. He's only marrying you because I told him to." I didn't flinch. I set down my champagne. I smiled. Because under my chair was a brown leather folder they didn't know I'd brought, and inside it was the truth they'd spent months hiding. If you've ever been the strong one in your family, the fixer nobody checks on because you always seem fine, you already know this loneliness. Welcome to Lineage of Lies. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from tonight. The party was in a hall my parents booked without asking me, in a dress my mother chose 2 sizes too small. My mother told me I looked nice, then turned straight to my sister Vanessa. In our family, Vanessa was the son. I was the reliable one, which meant no one worried whether I fell. Years back, Vanessa wrecked a co-signed car, and my parents quietly decided there was only so much help to go around, and she'd used it. I never showed them my own college acceptance letter. I worked pharmacy shifts and told myself it was fine. That's the family arithmetic. When Vanessa hit a credit card and racked up $9,000 in debt, I paid it off quietly. A month later she joked at dinner about how good she was with money. I said nothing. Being difficult always cost more than being quiet. The one thing entirely mine was my company. In 2018 I started Cedar Ridge Home Care at my kitchen table. My family called it Kimberly's little job. They never asked what it did. By this year it had 42 caregivers and did over $2 million a year, and my name alone was on the papers. Then came Nathan, an HVAC technician who fixed a client's heater for free because the folks in there need it more than I need $40. Nobody in my family had ever asked what I cared about. Nathan had known me a month. Then my family fell in love with him too fast. Dinner invitations, my father shaking his hand with both of his, Vanessa hugging me for the first time in years. Once, refilling my wine, she murmured, "Must be nice, everything finally going your way for once," and smiled like she'd meant it as a compliment. I let it go. I always let it go. Marry him soon, my mother said. Don't overthink it for once. People who never needed you don't warm up for free. The cracks showed at dinner. My father, who'd never once asked about Cedar Ridge, suddenly wanted to know how the business was structured. Was it smart to have everything in my name? Vanessa's husband Grant, who runs a lending firm, chimed in with the same question, checking with her before every word, like reading a script. Days later my father texted, "Come Sunday, bring the company paperwork." I walked into an ambush disguised as brunch. A document slid in front of me, a letter of intent transferring 51% of Cedar Ridge into Allen Family Holdings, effective the day I married. My father's signature already sat at the bottom. Only my line was blank. "I'd like to read it first," I said. The room went dangerously quiet. I don't think they'd ever heard me refuse anything. I excused myself, photographed every page, and drove home with the pieces locking into place. The sudden warmth, the pressure to marry fast, Grant's questions, it all pointed at the company I'd built alone. The warmth wasn't love. It was a countdown. I learned Nathan's family business was drowning in $180,000 of debt, quietly refinanced right around when we got serious, by Grant's firm. I needed to know if Nathan was in on it or trapped by it. One evening, an old family iPad lit up with a message from Vanessa to Grant. "Once she signs and they marry, the agency rolls into the holding. Nathan stays in line as long as we hold the note." I photographed the screen. My hands weren't steady that time. My father dropped the warmth entirely. "Sign before the wedding, or there won't be one, and think about what happens to Nathan's family." Vanessa set a fountain pen on my desk. "Everyone's counting on you to be reasonable." It nearly worked. I sat one night with that pen over the signature line, telling myself it was only a company. That's how they train the fixer, to believe her own life is the negotiable one. I drove to Cedar Ridge instead, where my operations manager Ruth put the kettle on and listened while I laid out all 3 pages. Ruth had come to me 5 years earlier from an agency that folded overnight when its owner sold it out from under 40 employees without warning. She knew exactly what it looked like when a company got handed away above the heads of the people who'd built it. "I'm not fighting them quietly again," I said. "I'm doing it where they can't pretend it didn't happen." Ruth didn't tell me to keep the peace. She slid the cup toward me. "This place is the only job I've ever had where nobody could just decide to take it. I'd like it to stay that way. I'm staying right beside you. You know how it started." The toast aimed at Vanessa, her whispered knife, my quiet smile. I stood, folder in hand, and waited, because truth lands harder when you let people finish talking first. Vanessa, certain she'd already won, lifted her glass toward Nathan. "We're just glad we could help your family get back on their feet." A few guests who knew his family exchanged looks. Then Nathan did something I hadn't planned. He picked up the microphone. "My family was crushed by debt. Ellison Capital made it disappear. The price was that I proposed to Kimberly and keep quiet." "That part is true," he said, voice shaking. "But here's what they didn't plan for. I fell in love with her anyway. Not the deal. Her. I won't be somebody's leverage." Silence. My mother went white. Vanessa's smile curdled. An accusation alone could still be spun, so I opened the folder. I didn't shout. I kept my voice level so the room had to lean in. "You wanted a toast to the pride of the family. Let me show you what they were actually proud of." First page, the letter transferring 51% of my company, effective on marriage, my father's signature already there. Second page, the timeline linking Coleman Brothers' debt to Grant's firm, right when Nathan and I got serious. Third page, read aloud, "Nathan stays in line as long as we hold the note." The room didn't gasp. It understood. Vanessa shot to her feet. "You were supposed to just sign it. You always sign, Kimberly. Why couldn't you just sign it like you always do?" Her own voice confirmed everything to 60 witnesses. She'd become the receipt. I slipped off the ring, walked it to my parents' table, and set it down. "I'm not signing anything. And I'm not marrying a wedding you planned. You don't get to give me away. You never owned me to begin with." I picked up my folder and walked out. Ruth was already waiting with my coat. Nathan followed at a respectful distance and didn't ask for anything, which told me more than any speech could. Because I never signed, Cedar Ridge stayed mine. Grant salvaged what he could of his name. My parents never apologized. The question I'd waited a lifetime to hear still didn't come. The difference was, I finally stopped waiting for it. Nathan didn't come running back. Cutting the Ellisons loose meant refinancing his family's debt on his own at a worse rate, and his father didn't speak to him for a month for airing it in front of 60 strangers. He showed up on my porch anyway holding white chrysanthemums, because he remembered I hated lilies. "I don't want the wedding they built," he said. "I want to earn the one we didn't, even if it costs more. We're starting over slowly, from nothing." Months later, Cedar Ridge opened a second location. I hung the crooked first sign I ever made by the front door. One of my clients, an 80-year-old widower, watched me check his medications and asked, "You take care of everybody." "Who takes care of you, dear?" Nobody in my family had ever asked me that. I told him I was working on it. He pushed his last cookie across the table, the one he always saves for me. This time, I took it. I didn't stop loving my family. I just stopped auditioning to be loved back. If you've ever had to choose yourself over being useful to the people who were supposed to love you, hit record on that thought and tell me about it in the comments. I'm Kimberly, and this has been Lineage of Lies.